everyone. Happy Monday. First day of spring. Are you excited? I'm excited to be here for week 2 of the TableRunner quilt along. So I hope you're excited. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me today for week 2. Now, let's chat real quick. I've got my iPad here. Let's see. Good morning, Sarah. Hi, Mom. So, friends, I hope that you were able to get your week 1 done and felt accomplished, got it done, no worries. What we're going to do first while we're waiting for a couple people to come on is I am going to answer just a few of the questions that I got via DMs or comments on videos of week 1 to answer some questions for you guys. And if you do have any questions and you're here live, pop them in the comment box and I will reference them. We'll get to those in a minute. So the first question I got was, where's the cutting instructions? Not the cutting instructions, the sewing instructions. As you know, I created, sorry, we're working with this table again. All right, so I created this cut guide. And so hopefully this was helpful. You were able to download this and use this as a reference tool when you were cutting. Now, unfortunately, I did not create a sewing guide for you. That is mainly because creating PDFs is a lot of work. And so I decided this block was, I think, easy enough where we're just going to put it together. And so there weren't any sewing instructions. I wasn't going to create a separate pattern. I didn't want to make something you guys had to buy or download or anything like that. So there are not any separate sewing instructions. The only instructions I have are the cutting guides. The next question I received was the best sewing machine. If you were new to quilting and you were like, okay, so if I'm going to dabble into quilting, what did I recommend? So unfortunately, I've run the gamut. I've had Singers and I've had Berninas. So that's the price is the scale here. So you can get a heavy duty Singer. I've heard lots of good things about that. I've never sewn on one before. And then, the big Berninas with the embroidery machine attachment and all the gobbledygook that comes with that. You don't need all that just to do quilting. My favorite, and I do have a YouTube video of the unboxing I did, and the one I brought over here to the sewing island. It usually lives over there on my sewing table in front of the window. But I brought it over to the island because we're going to be sewing today, is my Juki 2010Q. Now this is a machine. I'll just be real straightforward with you. It's an $1,000 machine that I have an Amazon link. I will link it down below. I've had it for about 18 months, bought it myself. So this is nothing in this video is sponsored. It is all 100% Carrie's opinion and Carrie's experience, and nothing is sponsored. So the Juki 2010 is my favorite. It is the workhorse of my studio 7 days a week. It only sews straight lines though. So, if you ever wanted to do a zigzag stitch or really that's it. If you want to do a zigzag stitch or any of those other decorative stitches, this machine is not for you. This machine is straight stitch only. Now, unfortunately, I could not figure out a way to bring the camera over here and show it to you during a live. Moving the cameras during the live proved to be a little tricky. So unfortunately, you're not going to get a top-down view of the machine and all the things. Maybe I'll turn it around later on and show you some of the dials if you want to see. But if not, I do have a unboxing video and I show you how I do it. It's just real simple. But why I like this one is it's metal. It's sturdy. It's got girth to it. It's easy to maintain. Now, I've had mine for almost 2 years now. I diligently, like we talked about last week, I diligently clean the lint, I change the needles, and I oil her so that she pays me back in my sewing properly. She did just go in for service. I also believe that, servicing your machines, I don't know, they give you, it's kind of like a car where they tell you this period of time or this many miles. Well, unfortunately with this machine, because it's so sturdy and there's no hour counter. The fancy Berninas have an hour counter, which will tell you, how many hours you've sewn. And so that's kind of equivalent to miles on a car. Well, there's no hour counter on this because there's no computer, which is also a real pro in my opinion, because the computers are what I've had experience breaking with the Berninas. It's the computers that always need to go back to the darn repairman, but that's it. Anyway, so this is my recommendation if you want to splurge. If not, I've heard lots of great things about the Singer Heavy Duty. The last question I received was, how do you cut straight lines? I love that. Okay, so, you know, when you're cutting straight lines and you're just cutting a 3.5 saw, this is real easy to cut, right? You're using your cutting mat, you line it up, straight lines. Now, what I think she was referring to is how you're going to cut straight lines when you were trimming these diagonal half square triangle blocks, right? We made half square triangle blocks. We turned that one big block into 4 separate ones, and then we had to trim them all to the 3.5 inch size. Now, if you were tempted to skip the trimming stage, let me encourage you strongly, don't do it. It is kind of a pain, you know, not the easiest thing to do, but it is so worth it when you get down to this assemblies part. The trimming makes sewing the blocks together light years easier. If you think, oh, I can just figure it out and, you know, I'm only trimming off an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch, that matters. It really, really does. And you're going to thank yourself for doing it. But what I did is I wanted to answer your question. When I showed you guys the tools you needed, I did not dive into the super specialty rulers because I wasn't trying to overwhelm you with some of the things you might need. But to answer this question, honestly, I wanted to show you what I did use. Now, of course, I did not bring, I have a board for that, but this, let me just show you. This is a Cute Cuts ruler. Now, what is that? So this is a 3.5 inch square. Yeah, perfect, right? So it comes as a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 5 ruler set. It goes from this is a 6.5, 6.5, 4.5, 3.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 5 ruler set. This is the 2.5. So it comes with this. This is a Lori Holt ruler by Riley Blake. I will link it down below. This is one of those extra ruler sets where if you do get into quilting and you're finding yourself trimming blocks down a lot, these are lifesavers. So that, to be honest with you, is how I cut a straight line. And so I've had this funky block. Now remember, when I was trimming them on the diagonal, I didn't have to pay quite as close of attention because I wasn't going to be lining up those straight lines on my ruling board. Because that's the great thing about this ruler, is not only is it a 3.5 inch square, it has the diagonal. You see the diagonal line? So what I did, of course, I didn't bring one untrimmed. I trimmed all my half square triangles yesterday. Took me about, I don't know, 30 minutes. And you can see, so when you're cutting it, you put it right on there and then you trim the 4 sides and it's perfect. You know that your points are in the corners and your block is truly 3.5. So these are, like I said, not needed, kind of specialty rulers. Listen, in the world of quilting, there's about 7,000 specialty rulers. I don't drink the Kool-Aid for a lot of them. Like I said, the 6x24 is my go-to ruler 99% of the time. But trimming half square triangle blocks, or also these are great for if you're going to trim your scraps and organize them in such a way like 5.5 or 6.5, and you want to have them and you've got this funky cut and you don't want to worry about making it, you can just cut these. And then it's also great for fussy cutting when you're making blocks, not like one of these, but if you're making a quilt block that you want to fussy cut, a cute little, like Tulip Pink has all those great, really fun animals in the middle, or the dragonflies or flowers, and you want to fussy cut the flower for the center of your block, these are perfect. And it's a cute little set of 5. So that is how I get straight lines. So let's see. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sarah and Karen, Elaine, Beverly, Papa. Good morning. All right, friends. So I think I've answered all the questions from last week. And so right now we're just going to dive right in. Now remember, week 2 is a big week. I'm going to be real honest with you. We're going to be doing a little bit more than you were last week. Hope that's okay. What brand of thread do you recommend? Great question, Lisa. Now, I I'll be honest with you, I use all of them. Over on my wall, I started off quilting 20 years ago, and so big box stores for my friends, and I Coats and Clark, Gutermann, I used them, and they worked. With quilting, you want to pay attention to the blend of cotton versus polyester. So as my quilting has evolved, so Gutermann was my budget big box. I loved it. Used a coupon at Joann's and got that 100% cotton thread. Perfect. Now, if you're stepping up a notch, your next step up is going to be RFL. RFL is what I'm going to use, and that's what I have on cones on my machine. I use RFL cones, and the difference between 40 weight and 50 weight depends on if I'm using free motion or if I'm piecing together, but cotton is what you want to use because your fabric is 100% cotton. You want to use cotton thread. So that's what I recommend. So good morning, everyone. All right, so like I said, we're going to dive right into week 2, and this is block assembly. Now, don't get scared. It's going to be great. I know there's going to be lots of people watching this on replays. I know Monday at 10 a.m. is not super convenient for a lot of people. I completely understand, like real world, we're supposed to be at it, but it worked best for me. So hopefully the replays are helpful and you're getting it done. But always, if you have questions when you're watching the replay, put them down below. I will try to answer them as the week goes on, or come back, or we'll talk about it next week. But either way, you can reach me Instagram, DM, all the places. I'm easy to reach, friends. All right, so today with the quilt block assembly, like I said, it's going to be a little more than it was last week. Last week was super, I wanted to ease you into the fun. So I kind of put week 2 as a little bit busy. Now we're making 5 blocks. So it's not going to rock your world, but it is going to take longer than last week. But what you need to do first, right? Okay, so let's just review. Remember, we've got 5 focus fabrics. And of each 5 focus fabrics, we cut out 3 of the larger squares and 2 of the 3.5-inch squares. Now, if you did your homework for week 2, your bigger squares have all turned into, you've turned them into 10 half square triangles. 12 actually, 12 half square triangles. Now we only need 10 of them. So you're gonna put 2 of them off to the side. You can use those for a scrappy project. Maybe you wanna make a little bag with them. We'll put them all together in a block. Maybe I'll use them. I am gonna do one of those foam zipper pouch bags. If you watch my Floss Tube Friday, there's a popular tutorial bag. So maybe I'll use my half square triangles and make a cute quilt block to put those together. That's fun, little patriotic zipper pouch. So you only need 10. You made 12. Yay, but you only need 10, so we're gonna put 2 aside. So you've got your 10 half square triangles. You've got your 2 3.5-inch squares. And then for each color, you need 4 of your solids. So whether you're using white, or remember I'm using this fun little lightly colored polka dot. So that's what you need to separate. So what you're gonna do first is you're going to separate them, whether you're going to use project boards or just lay them out on your table and just divide them into 5 colorways. So you take your 5 focus fabrics and you're gonna make 5 separate piles. Now, unfortunately, I did get ahead of you, so I can't show you 5 piles because I wanted to do a little kitchen magic, you know, like those cooking shows, and fast forward a little bit. So I don't have the 5 to show you, but that's what you need to do first, is you need to separate them into piles. Now we are gonna be sewing this one together, but let me show you what we're gonna do. Now, with each focus color, we're going to be making 2 of each block. Now, within this block, we just use this as a sample right here. So within this block, you see there's 2 of these that look like a big triangle and a little triangle. Here's one, and here's another, right? So we're gonna be making 2 of those. I'm calling those mini blocks. So we're gonna be making 2 mini blocks, and we're gonna be making 2 of these diagonal. They probably have a name, but I don't remember what the name. So we're going to be making 2 of these mini blocks for each color. Now, of course, you can't see, but down below, here we go. So you see right here, here's the big block of this florally, tealy with the lemons and the limes. Oh, it reminds me of Greece. And then we have this one, right? So we're going to be making 4 mini blocks for each colorway. And let me just show you on the board what that means. So remember, everything is divided. Woo! Everything is divided. You've got your segments. So we're just going to do one at a time, right? And so we're going to be making, this is this midi block, which is just a half square triangle sewn onto a white, a half square triangle sewn onto a white. You can see these pieces together, separate, and then we sew them together. And then we're going to do the same over here. So it's the solid color fabric with the half square triangle, and then 2 half square triangles, and we make these 2 strips, and then we sew those together. And so by the end of this, now of course we're going to get 4 mini blocks for each colorway. Now this one's not completely done because I finished these to show you. We do need to finish assembling these. So what I do have on the table is I did do it for all my colors except for one, and that's the one we're going to do together. So you can see I've got them all set up and ready to go. You guys are adorable. Where do I get my glasses? My glasses are from Zinnia Optical. It's an online, so I went to the eye doctor, got the fancy, like, broke the bank glasses. And then I decided, well, I like fun, like hot pinky things. So I will put a link down below to take you to where I get my glasses. I like, $30, $50, $40 ones. Totally prescription, super great. And then when I lose them, I don't feel bad because I can just press buy again and they come, in like 2 weeks. So thank you. All right, so friends, so hopefully that makes sense to you. So we're going to put one together. Now, like I said, I couldn't figure out the camera angle without coming over there and having you move with me, which would have been another ball of wax. I'm just gonna have to show you as I go. But like I said, so what I'm gonna do, we're gonna sew one together. So I've got my 4 whites, I've got my 10 half square triangles, and then I've got my 2 solids, right? Okay, so what I like to do, we're gonna do this block first, this mini block first. So I'm gonna sew 4 of these. So I'm gonna take 4 of my half square triangles and I'm gonna take my 4 solids and I'm just gonna sew them on the edge. Now it's really easy, you don't have to pay attention. Either edge works, so you just wanna sew it on the long side, right? Not on one of these sides, not white to white, or cream to cream, or whatever your solid is, but on one of the solid color sides. That's what you're gonna wanna do. Now, what you wanna do, this is where seam allowance matters. Up until now, we really didn't focus on that too much. Because when you did your seam allowance for your half square triangles, if your seam allowance was fat or skinny, no worries because we trimmed it away, right? So seam allowance didn't matter, or consistent seam allowance didn't matter too much, but it does now. So what you want to do, most quilt blocks, most quilt patterns, most quilt, all the things are sewn, the patterns are written and sewn with either a true 1/4 inch seam or a scant 1/4 inch seam. Now a scant 1/4 inch seam, it just means it's a little skinnier. Okay. Why they did that, I don't know. But what I have found is that as long as you are consistent, the blocks will assemble correctly. As long as you're consistent through the whole pattern. So whichever allowance you pick, whether it's a true 1/4 or a scant 1/4, as long as you're consistent, your blocks will assemble together. Now this matters because we do have this is a strong point pattern or a strong point quilt block. If it was one of those more forgiving quilt blocks, your seam allowance, you had a little more wiggle room. This one, I chose a point one. We're just go big, right? Deep end. Let's do it, friends. So I wanted to show you, now I can't show you on my machine. So the key to understanding a 1/4 inch foot or 1/4 inch seam is figuring out what works for you. Go Tigers, hi Leslie. So you need to figure out what works for you on whether it's going to be a 1/4 inch foot. So you have 2 options. One would be to get a foot for your sewing machine. A lot of sewing machines come with a 1/4 inch foot and they're going to either have like an edge guide, which is super convenient, or it's going to have like a ruler that you sign up on the side, but whatever works. So it's either a 1/4 inch foot or it's a 1/4 inch mark on the sewing plate. Now the Juki 2010 has a 1/4 inch mark on the plate. Now, but the plate's only 3 inches. So you see this silver area right here? That's the plate. And that's great. That works. These are small blocks that we're sewing together. So that one actually works for me for the most part. But I do want to show you one of my favorite things that is always in my tool drawer over there by my sewing machine. And whenever I am doing a quilt for the day, you know, not working on keepers or something like that, if I'm going to make a quilt for the day or work on quilt blocks, and the 1/4 inch seam matters. And once you get into a 12 inch or an 8 inch block, you know, this 3 inch, 1/4 inch guide, that doesn't help me. But what does help me is this washi tape. Now, again, I will link this down below. Please know that anything that I say I'm linking, I will link once the video uploads. YouTube does the processing and then allows me to go back and edit. So give me about an hour or so, and then I will go and add these links that I'm talking about. But they are in there. And so what this is, do you see right there? It looks just like the washi tape like you would have in your office supply, stationery, fun, journal situation. But instead of being pretty, it's a 1/4 inch seam. So you see right there, it's got 2 lines. It's got the red line down the middle and then a 1/4 inch on the left and the right. This is a game changer when you are lining up. So like I said, if we had a big block, even just these 6 inches that we're gonna sew together, when you line up, I'm gonna line up the 1/4 inch up at the top, but I wanna be able to make sure that I'm straight and not catawampus, right? But if I had my tape guide all the way down, then I will know as I'm feeding it through the machine, I'm staying at a 1/4 inch the whole time. So again, I love this tape. I've had it for years and haven't even finished one roll yet. So it goes a long way. I use it. And then when I'm using my machine for something else, obviously it doesn't work when you take, you know, I end up taping it down on my tray. So it's not super convenient. But I peel it up, throw it away, and put another piece down. Like I said, haven't run out yet. So you'll be great. So don't be afraid of, oh, I gotta make it last. You don't need to make it last. I don't even know how many feet or yards are on that thing, but way more than you need. That's the point. All right, friends. So where did you get your cutting instructions? All right, so cutting instructions. This is a PDF that's available on my website. It's under patterns. Like I said, anything I'll link later. But if you go to tigerlilyshop.com, you go to shop patterns, this will be a download that you can grab. It's a free download. You just have to go in there and add it to your cart, check out, and the PDF is sent to you. So that's easy enough. That's where you get the cutting instructions. All right, friends. So now we're going to work. Remember, we're going to try to keep this less than an hour. How am I doing? Ooh, 20 minutes in. Okay, this is what we're making. We're going to make 2 of these. So to make 2 of these, our 4 whites, and we need 4 half square triangles. And again, we're just going to sew them. Okay, so, you know, right sides to right sides. This isn't super beginner, but just in case, right sides to right sides, line it up. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a really good pinner, but that's because I feel like I've earned the right to not pin. So I encourage you, do as I say, not as I do. I encourage you to pin, unless you're an experienced quilter and you feel comfortable, you know, holding it and doing all the things. I encourage you to just take the extra step and pin these together. So you just want to pin your right sides together, and then we're going to sew our 1/4 inch seam right here. So the one thing also about this machine, did I leave it over there? I did. So over here, I don't have my knee guide. Now, that is also one of my favorite game changer features for the Juki 2010 is a knee lever. And what's a knee lever do? Well, see, you know, when you do your presser foot up and down, it's this little handly thing on the back of the sewing machine, right? Well, the knee lever goes into the front of the machine, and then when you're sitting, it doesn't work when you're standing, but when you're sitting, you just use your knee and you kick it over, and it raises the presser foot. It's magic. But anyway, can't use that when I'm standing, so we're not going to do that. And again, I am going to apologize now for the sound, and if it shakes the camera, I have no idea. but you know, we're sewing together, so it's gonna happen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew the 1/4 inch seam. It also has a thread cutter, also one of my favorite things. All right, so when you're sewing, remember you do want to 1/4 inch seam. I lined up, like we talked about the 1/4 inch seam. This sewing plate has a 1/4 inch. I just use the standard foot that comes on here, so I'm using the 1/4 inch line on my sewing machine, on the guide. But you're gonna wanna back stitch at the top and back stitch at the bottom. Just to keep, it holds those stitches tight. Otherwise they might open up when we press open. So this is what we're gonna make. Now, pressing. We talked about this before with the half square triangles. We have 2 ways of pressing. One is with the ruler, with this wooden roller, and one is with the cute little iron. And well, Matt, you guys love that pink iron. I love it too. But this, I'll be honest with you, I sewed all these little blocks this morning. Woke up maybe about half an hour. It took me to sew all of those. I did not, my iron wasn't even turned on. So I used this the entire time. And that's because it's just so much easier. You can finger press, you're not seeing me. So you can finger press right here. You should not do this on your sewing machine. And I am shaking the table, so sorry about that. But then you want to press it open and you will see why. So let me show you. Pressing it open is going to just make it, when you get to the corners and the bulk, it just makes the bulk lay prettier. And so that way when you're putting your table runner together, the bulk is evenly distributed. If you iron to one side, so when you're quilting, I kind of feel like I tangent a lot. When you're quilting, you can either nest. So you can iron to one side and then you can nest to get the nice pretty point. So that means one block is one way and one block is the other way. I'm not gonna teach you how to nest. Because I think it takes a lot more thinking when you're sewing your blocks together, because you got to make sure that one goes one way and one goes the other way. With pressing everything open, everything's open. You don't have to think about it. Everything is open. And you can see right here in the middle point, that's, 4 corners of bulk right there. But because everything is pressed open, it's minimized as much as you can. So we're going to sew one more of those, and I'm going to show you how we do it together. So again, it's real easy. And all I did was I just lined them up this morning and did chain piecing. So obviously I'm not going to chain piece with you guys here. You don't need to sit here and watch me sew forever, which is why I did a lot of it pre. But you just press it open real quick, right? Super easy. And then, so you're going to have 4 of these. Hold on a minute. That one's that way. And then all right. So we're going to have these and we're going to sew those together. Now this is when you sew these together, that is where you want to take special consideration. This is another area. So I'm, again, just pressing it open with my roller. No iron needed, right? Okay. So I have them two segments like this, and now I'm going to sandwich them together like this. This is where I will pin. I will pin 1 pin. You should probably pin 3 unless you're experienced. Like I said, do what you want. But I do pin in the corners. So what I'm going to try to do, you see this is an area where I'm minimizing bulk because I'm going to minimize. I'm going to make sure that my seams stay open. And I'm going to line up these corners or the intersections where they lined up. And I'm going to pin right there across the way. Now, this is an area. Let's just show you what could happen. So you can see I pinned right here, right? What color? Of course, I used a blue pin, so you can't even daggone see it. But there's a pin right here. And so I pinned that so the points match. So, it gets a little cattywampus at the top and the bottom, right? So I could mess up. So what you could do is pin 3 pins, top, middle, and bottom. Now, because I'm teaching you, I should do better. Of course, I wiggled it away, so don't do that. When you wiggle it around, it moved the middle pin, which is so it moves, so more pins are better. But I'm not gonna do that. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm just gonna do my nice 1/4 inch seam down the middle, take my pin out, open it up, and there we have it. So you need to make 2 of those. Oh no, your reverse doesn't work. Uh-oh, might need to go to the sewing machine repairman. I don't know how to fix that. I tried to get Patrick to figure out how to serve a sewing machine so that I wouldn't have to take mine away. He didn't really want to do it. So we're going to make 2 of these. So here's one. And let's just imagine I had 2. So that's what you need to do. You need to make 2 of those. All right. And then now we're going to make, well, let me put these together over here. So we're going to make 2 of those blocks, and we're going to make 2 of these blocks. Now these blocks are a little bit different, right? So this block, I need 3 half square triangles and the 1 solid. So we've used all of our white. The 4 whites should all be used and good and done. And now we need the half square triangles. The last, we need 3 for each. So we need 2 of those, and there's my other 3, and then we need my 2 solids, right? Okay, I like to do this in sections. So again, I'm gonna bring up my sample board. So we're gonna be making 2 that look like this, and we're gonna making 2 that look like this, and then we sew them together, okay? Totally doable. So you line it up. Again, I always just look. It's one of those things that's kind of like cutting or measuring, and all the things. You measure twice, cut once, look once, twice, 3 times if you want before you sew. I mean, I always have my handy dandy seam ripper, and I'll be honest, I used my seam ripper this morning. So even if you've been quilting for 20 years, you still use a seam ripper. But you just want to look. Okay, so line it up that way. They're on top. It's just easier to follow if you sew it that way, right? So look twice, 3 times, and then sew once. And of course, I gotta line up real. So these should line up perfectly. If your half square triangles were trimmed. Oh, did my machine just come unthreaded? That would have been fun, live on TV. Sure did. All right. So sometimes your machine comes unthreaded, such as live, right? And yes, this machine does have an automatic needle threader. I don't know how to use it. Yeah, I'm just being real with you, friends. I don't know how to use it, and I'm okay with it. I just trim it and do it myself. It takes me no time. So you sew in a straight line, back stitch, cut the thread, open it up, 1. Okay, I'm gonna press that seam open. Now remember, the key here, and you can see as I'm doing it, you can see, hopefully, all my allowances are about as perfect as you can get, because the 1/4 inch, I'm using my 1/4 inch line. That's the method I have chosen versus a foot, but the key is just consistency. Whatever you are using, just be consistent about it. So the next step is to go ahead and sew block to half square triangle, right sides together. Again, just look at the block, look twice, sew once, open it up, right? And you can see what you're creating. If your 1/4 inch seams are spot on, you are creating a 1/4 inch right here. Do you see the difference between where this point meets and the bottom, where the red edge of the white is? That's a perfect 1/4 inch. So when we're sewing this block together, that's how we get our perfect points. And you can see the same thing on this one. Maybe you can see it a little bit better, but you can see this point right here is a 1/4 inch. This one's not, because this is still a 1/4 one, or this is still a raw edge, but this one was sewn in, so you can see the 1/4 inch seam that we created right for that perfect point. So this is an area where we're going to sew them together. So you can see right here, we're going to be sewing this one to this one. See the 1/4 inch seam we created up there, the 1/4 inch seam we created. We're going to fold them together and sew them. Now, this is another area. This is another part. Again, I always pin when the points need to meet perfectly. That's a step you can't skip, in my opinion. So I pin those together, and this is where I don't pin the top and the bottom, but feel free to. And I'm going to put my foot down. Hold on, my dial went under the island. All right, and you can see, let me press it open for you, and it's just going, you can see the middle section and the perfect points we just created. All right, so you can see this perfect point. See right here, this is the point we just created. We just put that together, and see all 4 of those blocks met perfectly because we were consistent with our 1/4 inch seam, consistent with the seam, and we pinned it together. And that is how we get, what is it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different pieces of fabric to come together to a middle point, and everything. This block is perfect, to be honest with you. Now, not all blocks are going to be perfect. These are made by human hands and not a machine. I mean, by a machine, but really. So if you looked closely at my TableRunner, I will never tell you that every block is perfect, because they are not. There's a point, like this one's a little off. There's a little off right there. So you do not give yourself lots of grace when your points don't come together perfectly. It was just not even TV magic that this happened. But there are many of my samples, just even this morning. Here's one. You can see it's off just a hair, just enough where if, the Quilting Police came and showed me that, and I'd be like, don't you be looking that closely at my quilt blocks. No, don't do it. All right, so you need to sew all of them together. Now got myself all disheveled over here, because what we're gonna do next is, so that's what you have to do. You have to sew 2 of these and 2 of these of each of your 5 colorways, right? So you have 5 fat 1/4 fabrics that you cut up, or scraps, or whatever you're using, and you're going to be making 5 that look like this, and 2 of each. So 10 that are going to look like this, and 10 that look like this. 2 of each of 5. 2, 5, 10. Math. So that's what you're going to need to do. Now, once you get that done, you're like, okay, that's awesome, Carrie. Now I've got 20 mini blocks, right? Because that's what you need. Each 12-inch block is made up of 4 mini blocks. Now remember, our TableRunner is 5 blocks, 4 mini blocks, 4, 5, 20, math. So we do need to sew these up real quick, but I'm not gonna do that with, let's see. Yeah. Because I do want to show you the last step, and because it makes a difference. So let me just sew a couple of these more together with you. So if you have any questions, here's one I need to pin. So I am going to pin them. And the reason why I want to show this to you real quick is because the layout matters. And if you look at the TableRunner behind me, it's kind of like an interactive class. Can anybody see the difference? Yeah, hold on. I'll show you the difference in a minute. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to open all of those up. Use this seam roller. Press it open. And like, remember how I told you to see? Look how beautiful that seam, those seams are. This is like a commercial for the seam roller, isn't it? So you can see, so let's talk about why do I feel like I want to lay this all out and show it to you before I let you go for week 2. Because right now, or at least if you're following along and you press pause, you have 20 mini blocks, right? You have 10 of these variety and you have 10 of these variety. Wow. Now it gets to assembly. And so this is where it becomes personal preference. This is when it becomes what looks pretty to your eye. This is where everybody's are going to be different because your fabrics are different and custom and all the things. So you can see right here, this was a Rifle Paper Company fabric bundle, all florals, right? Mostly blues, a little bit of yellows. Here's a daffodil. And of course, in true Carrie fashion, there's always a pop of orange. Everything is better with the pop of orange, right? So everything pops in like this. So, but what you can see, this is what I was asking you. What do you see that's different? So you can see these big ones always go like this, right? They're always the same direction when I'm laying it out. But these hourglass ones rotate. Do you see that? Maybe you didn't see it before, but you rotate them. So not only do you need to lay this out on a dining room table, a kitchen table, let me talk while I move my sewing machine so I can do it with you. So you want to lay this out on a table so that you can visualize before you put your 20 mini blocks together. You want to figure out what looks good. And again, this is going to depend, of course my iron's hot, although I didn't use it. This is going to depend on your personal fabric. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you. So the first thing I did, and I would do myself, is to lay out all the big ones. Because again, remember, all the large ones are going to go the same direction. This is where you're just going to see a little Carrie brain happening. Now I have 2 reds, 2 dark blues, and 1 light blue. Now, true confessions, I like symmetry. So I will plan accordingly, lay out accordingly based on symmetry. So I am going to put the 2 darks at the top and then a red. Can you guess what's next? The one where I only have 1. The light blue is in the middle. Then I will do another red, and then I will do another dark blue. So my table runner will be symmetric in that way. Now it's not going to be in your face, because then what I'm going to want to do is mix and mingle the hourglass blocks, right? So because of my fabrics, I'm not going to put red with red or dark blue with dark blue. I can mix them up. So you just want to lay them out on your table, on whatever piece you're using, to just see what works best for you. And so let's see, do I have it on my board? So I would sit there, I'll be honest with you, when I did the Rifle Paper Company one, I probably laid them out and then moved it, laid it out and moved it a couple different times. And that's okay. That's the great thing about a table runner. It's 5 blocks. It's going on your table. So hopefully your kitchen table is big enough for you to play a little quilt block Tetris, putting everything together. Now, once you get everything together, what you're going to want to do is, what you're going to want to do is put them together on whether it's a project board or just bring them over into your studio or your sewing machine, or if you sew on the dining room table, that's totally awesome. I did that too. So you're just going to sew them together. So this was my top block. And you can see that I have the hourglasses going this way. So in the next one after that, I will flip the hourglasses. Just take note. Now, you do not have to. If when you're laying it out based on your fabric, based on your colorways, based on whether you like symmetry or whether you like crazy wonky stuff, which I totally embrace too, you can either keep the hourglasses all in the same direction, just like we're doing with the big ones, or you can turn the hourglasses every other one. Now, when I was laying this one out, I also flipped the big ones. Instead of the hourglasses, I did both when I was playing with the layout. And that's the great thing about making mini blocks and then laying them out to see which one you like. And you can just sit there and play the whole time, but it's only 20 blocks. It's easy. And then once you get them laid out, take a picture with your phone. That's what I did. Because just in case when you're walking from said table to back to wherever you're sewing and something happens, you have a picture to reference. Oh, this goes here, this goes there. It's perfect. So that's always what I do when I'm laying something out on a different space, a different area. I take a picture with my phone to use as a reference later on. So what you've got now is I've got 4 mini blocks per big block. And then I'm just gonna sew them together, just like I assembled the mini blocks right here in the corner. I'm going to sew this right sides together, sew the seam right here. I'm gonna sew this right sides together. I'm gonna pin these corners, because remember, we've got corners right here we wanna meet up. This doesn't look like it's got a seam, but we wanna meet up our seams, not corners. We wanna pin our seams so that they match. So sew, press open with your seam roller, right? And then we're gonna end up sewing them together this way. Again, you're gonna have 3 seams to match up, and you get a little bit of give. Another question that I got was cutting this on the bias. Because your hourglass half square triangles were cut on the bias, you have a little bit of grace, a little bit of wiggle room. So if you need to pull a seam just a skosh, you can do it so that your seams match up, and then it's gonna open up perfectly. So that is what you're gonna wanna do, is you're gonna wanna sew your 20 mini blocks, make 5 big blocks, and then you're gonna sew them together. It's all just straight lines. Straight lines, straight lines, straight lines. And so then at the end of this week, like I said, this week's gonna take a little bit longer. Do it in pieces. Do your hourglasses. Do the, I don't know what this block is called. I feel like this is an hourglass, but I don't know what this one's called. Do these and then put them on your table. Come back the next day. See how it looks to you. Take a picture with your camera. Sometimes the values of a color, even if you switch it to black and white, is also a great tip that a lot of people use, because you can see sometimes, depending on the colors of your fabrics, the darks and the lights get lost. But if you switch your color, your photo, to black and white, you can see, oh, I've got 2 darks together and 2 lights together. Let me switch those around. The tones and the intensity of those colors kind of scream back out at you if you switch the color. So that, give yourself some time. You've got a week to put it together. At the end of this week, what you want is you want to have your 5 blocks sewn together. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, that's what we're going to do this week. We're going to talk about the next week. I know next week we're going to be, let me reference my calendar. We're going to prepare the backing, assemble the sandwich, and start quilting together. So also next week, we're going to sew this extra edge. If you want a little extra credit, get ahead of the game. Remember, what we did is we created these skinny little 1.5 inch strips, and that's what's on the edge. But no worries, we're going to talk about that next week before we prepare the backing, assemble the sandwich, and start to quilt. But getting the quilt top done is this week's task. Totally doable. It's 5 blocks. Take your time. Hopefully you've got everything trimmed, prepped, ready to go. And that's what we have for you today. So I am going to hang around for just a few more minutes in case anybody has any questions. It sounds like you guys are super excited about the seam roll. This is really like no iron needed. A little bit of elbow grease, but fantastic. And it opens those seams right up. So I press on the back, and then I also sometimes come back and just roll on the top just to reinforce that open. And no iron needed. The only time I use an iron is later on when I'm putting it all together, just giving it a good final press before we put the top together. So that is one thing that I would recommend. Yay, Sarah, I'm so excited. You can do it. Is after you get your 5 blocks sewn together, and if you just use this roller, you're like me. But come ready to go next week with your quilt top, your 5 block top sewn together. Give it a good nice press. It'll just really seal those seams open, ready to go, because when we do our pinning and our free motion quilting or straight line stitching or quilting, we want to make sure those seams are straight and laying flat and ready to go. So that is what we've got today, friends, for our week 2 quilt along. I hope you guys are having fun. I am having fun doing this with you, and I can't wait to see what you guys are putting together. So remember, if you're on Instagram and you are sewing along, tag me at Tiger Lily Designs, or I think I had a quilt along hashtag, but I don't remember what it is right now. So just tag me and I will see it and we'll have fun. And so until next time, friends, I will see you soon. Happy sewing.